I just got the biggest and fastest gaming GPU in the world, and it is absolutely insane in pretty much every sense. Not only is its baseline performance leaps beyond the previous generation of video cards, but Nvidia's new DLSS 3 technology is not just marketing fluff, but potentially the solution to a big problem with modern game design, and you'll absolutely want to hear about what it can do, because honestly, it's just crazy. Now, I want to give Nvidia a huge thank you for sponsoring this video and sending me this card. I know that giant video cards like this are a luxury to game with, and I certainly don't take this kind of hardware for granted. And while today's video will be showcasing the performance of the RTX 4090, it's actually going to focus a lot more on the new DLSS 3 tech that's going to be available on all of the 40 series GPUs. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I was a bit skeptical about the crazy performance graphs that I saw from Nvidia's RTX 40 series reveal. Sometimes when there's a new generation of hardware coming out and new features are showcased a bit more than legacy applications, well, one has to wonder, well, what kind of voodoo magic is going on here with this DLSS 3 stuff? Now, the original DLSS technology in itself isn't really new anymore. Basically, DLSS tech uses Nvidia's parallel cores and AI code to intelligently upscale games to higher resolutions with no visual degradation while maintaining the performance of a lower resolution. It's made 4K gaming at 60 FPS possible for many gamers and has pretty much become a staple of AAA game performance and kind of a must-have for most major titles. Nvidia has been iterating upon this DLSS tech over the years with DLSS 2.0, which has further improved the performance and visual quality of it. So what exactly is DLSS 3 then? I would assume just a better version of the same thing, right? Well, in part, yes. The classic super resolution tech is improved in DLSS 3, but it's also adding new features like frame generation. This allows the GPU to render additional frames in between the frames that it receives from the CPU. So in games that are especially bottlenecked by the processor, frame generation can basically double the FPS in certain cases. It's very impressive. But let's hang on for a second. On paper, all of this stuff sounds great. The thing is, I got to test it out for myself, and the results actually speak for themselves. Alright, here we've got Cyberpunk running at a 4K resolution with all the visuals set to max. It's running on my computer with the 4090 installed and a very good gaming CPU. But the one catch is that I've purposely turned off all of Nvidia's DLSS tech in the settings. So the engine is sending the code to the GPU and the card is churning out a raw 4K image with no upscaling, reflex, low latency, or frame generation. The frame rate is in the 30s pretty consistently, arguably playable, but certainly not ideal, especially given the raw power of the hardware that's in this machine. Now, I'm going to open the game menu. I'm not going to restart. I'm simply going to just open the menu and turn on DLSS with frame generation. I'll set the super resolution to performance, and here you can see that the visual settings are all maxed out. Even the ray trace lighting is set to psycho. Then I'll just confirm that we're at that 4K resolution and pop back into the game exactly where we were previously getting 37 FPS. Now we're in the 120 FPS range. Again, this is 4K, everything at ludicrous, nobody will ever be able to run this game type settings, and here we are playing the game with an almost 4 times frame rate boost from DLSS 3 technology. This right here is exactly why I might sound a bit enthusiastic for this video. Now, just to be clear, if you're playing a game with a GPU that supports DLSS 2 and you upgrade to a 40 series card so that you can run DLSS 3, you will get a performance boost and it'll likely be very dramatic, but the 4 times difference that you're seeing here is because I'm going from 0 DLSS to full DLSS 3 turned on. The jump from DLSS 2 to DLSS 3 won't be a 4 times performance gain in most situations, but that doesn't mean it won't be substantial. Some games will see higher FPS boosts while some will see lower. Booting up F122 on 4K max settings, and I saw my average FPS of 86 get bumped up to 205 FPS with DLSS 3 turned on. Almost a 2.5 times performance boost. Now on Microsoft Flight Simulator, I tested out something a little different. I left DLSS on, but I turned off frame generation. With frame generation off, you can see here that I'm getting around 50 FPS. Opening up the options and simply switching frame generation on, and it doubled my FPS. And I'm personally so impressed, and I think it shows a huge amount of insight on NVIDIA's part, is the fact that frame generation is massively beneficial to games that are CPU bound. Most large-scale, open-world, high-fidelity, or high-physics games often demand a lot from their CPUs, and game engine code simply does not scale as well as render code does. It's just the nature of how it works. So while you may have some awesome 12-core or 16-core CPU, you may notice that only 2 or 3 of those cores are maxed out, while the rest are sitting mostly underutilized. This doesn't mean that the game isn't well optimized necessarily, it's just more due to the nature of game engines just not scaling in parallel. And there doesn't seem to be an easy solution to this specific problem, so NVIDIA was just like, well, what if we just render frames in between the ones that the CPU is giving us? That way it doesn't matter if the game is CPU bottlenecked. We can basically double the FPS. And considering that NVIDIA keeps refining their DLSS tech, I would imagine that frame generation will only continue to get even better over time. Now again, DLSS 3 will be available on all 40 series GPUs. Currently the 4090 is the one that's available now, and then in November the 4080 is coming with, I would imagine, some more offerings from NVIDIA down the road. Currently there's 35 games that are on track to support DLSS 3. Some of the already confirmed DLSS 3 games beyond Cyberpunk are Microsoft Flight Simulator, Warhammer 40k Darktide, Marauders, F122, Portal, Atomic Heart, Stalker 2, A Plague Tale, The Witcher 3, plus the Unity engine, Unreal Engine, and Frostbite engine are now updated to support it, so basically future games developed on those engines should be able to use DLSS 3 pretty easily. Now, I do have to spend a little bit of time gushing about the 4090, just a little. It's a massive performance punch-up even in games that don't yet support DLSS 3, so you better believe that I've been putting it through its paces on Battlefield and Star Citizen, and I'll be dropping some content talking about those games as well. Having been a lifelong PC gamer, I've found it rare to be in a hardware cycle that lets you play current gen games on maxed out settings at extremely high frame rates, but that's what you can do with an RTX 4090. There's a lot of games that I'll simply be playing at 4K now because I can run them consistently at 144 frames per second. It truly is a luxury, and I don't mean to gloat, but rather express that as someone who's been constantly optimizing and upgrading their gaming build for the past 20 plus years, it feels like my current build is more ahead of the curve than it's ever been. I gotta say kudos to NVIDIA on their tech. They are inventing some crazy stuff and solving problems so that we can play more ambitious, crazier games with higher frame rates and better graphics. I can't wait to watch as more and more games get upgraded with DLSS 3 support. I think it's going to be absolutely insane for the performance benefits. I hope you guys enjoyed this video showcase of the new DLSS 3 tech overview. Let me know what you think of it and what games you'd like to see DLSS 3 added to. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.